Hello, I'm Gloria Makarenko. Well, here's to family traditions and looking forward to spring. This is Our Vancouver. Coming up, from garden to glass, to food and drink entrepreneurs distill their art for us. And gospel singer Marcus Mosley is going to tell us what moves him. But first, a children's author connects kids with their culture through a Nisga'a fish tale. You know, family traditions define so much of how we see ourselves. And from a very young age, we learn through the usual things. Maybe it's food or dance or language. But what about the books we read and who we read them to? Well, Indigenous author Samantha Beynon has written a unique book that you and your children will enjoy. Samantha, hello there and welcome.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well. Now, as a member of the Nisga'a Nation, is it too late to wish you Hobiye?
Not at all. Totally the time of Hobiye right now.
Hobiye for you as well. Now, tell us about this beautiful book, Oolichan Moon. What's it about?
Yeah, so I have it here with me. Oolichan Moon is about a story about two daughters or two sisters that were actually staying at their grandparents' home in the Nisga'a Valley. And throughout the story, they are learning a wealth of information from their grandparents. And yeah, it's just a really fun story where they're learning all of this sacred information along with the realness behind it. The two sisters are a little bit cheeky in the story and they're fighting. And when I'm reading it out loud, I notice like that's the big part that the children love. And yeah, so it's all about the Oolichan fish, right down to how we eat it, our ancestors ate it, and the significance behind Hobiye in the story.
Well, you and I both grew up in the north. We both born and raised in Prince Rupert, and I know the Oligan and the Oligan Run in the spring was a big part of us growing up. We'd go up to the Skeena River or even the Nass Valley. That's where the Oligan Run. But what is special about these wonderful little fish? I know, but why don't you tell everyone else?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this little fish is so diverse in so many ways. Not the only way that you can just, eat it, but it is so oily when dried. The little fish can actually be lit like a candle. And the importance of the Oolichan fish is the oil, so the Oolichan grease, and how we still use that today, and how our ancestors preserved them and would put them in big bentwood boxes and trade with surrounding nations. But the big thing for me when I was growing up was when I was sick and we would have to put a little bit in our ear. I would heat mine up and then I would just drink it. But for me, it's just the diversity in which this little tiny fish offers.
Yes, well, again, a real natural medicine too, and again, that beautiful, rich oil that was really like gold back in the day. Now,
Yeah.
now, why were you sort of directing this at children? I mean, how does that sort of reflect your own upbringing?
Yeah, well, we didn't have a lot of Indigenous literature when I was growing up, and it started to become a little bit more popular. And then since moving home from my community, I've been studying at Vancouver Island University, finishing my degree in the Bachelor of Education program. And throughout studying, I became fascinated with my culture and learning history. So a lot of the courses I took on the side were Indigenous history courses. And yeah, so I just kind of fell in love with learning more about my heritage. And then I kind of combined the two. Wanting to create something to benefit the children, along with all of the information that I was learning throughout school.
Well, and it's interesting because there is a little bit of history here, isn't there? Where your passion for writing and finding out more about your family history. Tell us about your great-grandfather and the connection there.
Yeah, so my great grandfather is William Beynon on my father's side. And I always knew about my great grandfather learning in school. We would tell lots of stories, and I knew the importance of the good work that he was doing. But it wasn't until I got to university really realizing the significance behind it and all the good work that he was doing. So we both kind of have similar stories, but my great grandfather, he was born in 1888 in Victoria to a Welsh father, and then his mother was Nishka Simshian. He had 6 brothers, and he was the only one that was fluent in his Tsimshian language. So increasingly, he became more eager to learn about his history and where he came from. And so he ended up going to Lakwalams, and he ended up taking on a role as a hereditary chief. But just like him, he liked to study and learn and write. And yeah, and so I thought that was really cool, but it's kind of following in his footsteps a little bit because, you know, he's a huge, one of my biggest role models, and I definitely want to carry on a lot of that good work.
Well, sure. And he left behind a whole treasure trove of microfilm and sort of a lot of artifacts in there as well, and records of what it was like for First Nations communities back there. What does, back in that time, I mean, what does that mean for you, just in terms of your own family identity?
Yeah, so I seen those microfilms being found at the Tea Creek Training and Employment farm there. It was incredible, and what a huge find. I have spoken to someone there, and they are just a great organization, and they are hoping to kind of keep these in a safe place and then hand them off in Indigenous ways.
What's next for you? You've got this beautiful book out. What are you pursuing?
Yeah, so I love writing. I would like to continue writing right now. I'm a teacher student right now, teaching grade 5 and 6 in my last year. And then part-time, I work at Bridges for Women as a cultural competency developer kind of writer. So I put together these manuals, and that's going to help benefit our organization. So right now I'm just really wanting to write more, focus a lot of time on my 2 young daughters who are only 4 and 6. And yeah, just kind of continue learning, and hopefully just any way I can benefit our community.
Well, thank you for shining a light on your community with us this morning. Thank you so much, Samantha.
Oh, thank you.
This is Sina from Blends. You're watching our Vancouver.
The natural beauty of our province, it continues to inspire so many of you to go outside with your cameras and share your favorite images with us. We're going to start with this one today. Georgiana Reel spied this bald eagle in Port Coquitlam's Wellington Park in the early hours of the first snow last weekend. I love that. And stargazer Warren Lowe says this photograph was taken off his back deck in Green Lake. Just amazing. I love those swirls. And finally, Richard Topping. Yes, he came through again with another stunning photograph. This one, a blue heron taking flight in the snowy sunshine. Just lovely. Thanks to all of you. And do send us more if you're out with your cameras. Just select your favorite shots and email them to us, bcphotos@cbc.ca. bcphotos@cbc.ca. Now, it's an unusual Olympic medal ceremony, decades in the making. More than 40 years ago, thieves in BC made off with a pair of gold medals. They were won by a Canadian athlete. And while the originals were never found, the family finally has the next best thing. Well, we caught up with some of Percy Williams' family members.
Percy Williams of Canada won double golds in the 100 and 200-meter sprints.
He's the only Canadian to ever do it in a surprising victory at the 1928 Amsterdam Olympics. Percy Williams returned home a hero, but decades later, his prized medals were stolen after being donated to the BC Sports Hall of Fame.
In 1980, when gold prices had spiked to historic highs, one night a thief broke into Percy's display at the PNE.
Wanting to restore his legacy, Williams' family pushed the International Olympic Committee to replace them, and it worked.
What a proud and satisfying moment. This feels right.
To recreate them, the original 1928 molds were pulled out of the Olympic archives.
It is a rare situation, but certainly these kinds of cases, the International Olympic Committee felt that it was appropriate to make the exception.
There was, disappointment, and that's gone now. Now they're going to remember him for his accomplishments.
Vancouver-born Percy Williams was an unexpected champion.
As a boy, he suffered from rheumatic fever, which apparently weakened his heart, and doctors told him to take it easy, and he didn't.
Decades later, the Olympian reflected on his achievements.
The first one was enough, but when you get two, that really finished it.
But Williams also deserves another spot in Canadian history. George Stanley, the designer of the current Canadian flag, says this image of Williams crossing the finish line with a maple leaf on his chest was the inspiration.
He was instrumental in us having our flag nationally, and people don't know that.
With the medals restored, the hope is Percy Williams, once the fastest man in the world, will get the recognition he deserves. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Vancouver.
A well-known forest ecologist here in BC is fielding criticisms of her life's work. Suzanne Simard has gained international attention for her research on how trees communicate. But a recent review claims that her work might not be applicable to every forest. Here's our story.
It's what many call the wood wide web. Trees communicating with each other through networks in the soil using mycorrhizal fungi attached to their roots. That's according to UBC forest ecologist Suzanne Simard, who is at the forefront of studying forest networks.
It's really, really important work for protecting forests.
She's been credited for influencing how people understand trees in a way that likens their behavior to how societies function. She says trees share nutrients with younger saplings and release chemicals that warn each other of distress, much like a community. But a recent citation review published in Nature, Ecology and Evolution claims there is insufficient evidence to support this, saying studies using this approach only looked at two forest types, Douglas fir forests in BC and pine forests in Japan.
Most scientists in this field would agree that it's probably likely that trees are connected below ground through these mycorrhizal fungi, but we don't understand their persistence, we don't understand who is connected to who in the forest.
Our concern is really that we shouldn't automatically assume that these happen everywhere.
The co-authors are disputing the claim that mycorrhizal networks are widespread in forests. They say nutrients could be transferred in other ways, but Simard says their critiques are missing the major point of her work that encourages viewing forests as connected ecosystems that form relationships.
This article really focused on a very narrow part of that, but overall, the idea that forests are connected and communicative places, that doesn't change.
Still, the co-authors are asking for more evidence.
The message is that although these fungi are there and very important, we need to study a lot more forests to see how well they're connected. They're extremely variable.
Simard says she is welcoming more calls for research.
That's always needed, especially in ecosystems as complex as forests. We need to work together as teams to really solve these complex problems.
Simard says critiques of any research are expected, and the back and forth is a natural part of the scientific method. Ali Patarga, CBC News, Vancouver.
Coming up, Johanna Wagstaffe takes a deeper dive into Darwin's theory of evolution and finds a UBC professor behind the science.
Thanks to Darwin and his finches, we've all heard of natural selection. That's the key mechanism to evolution. In a nutshell, natural selection pressures enables individuals with certain traits in a population to prosper. They produce offspring and continue to pass down those traits. Well, the idea of natural selection was made popular by Darwin after a trip to the Galapagos Islands back in 1831. It was Dolph Schluter who really brought it home for us 150 years later. A professor of zoology at the University of British Columbia, his work in the field and in the lab has revealed the ecological mechanisms that drive the creation of new species.
Something we call adaptive radiation, which is the sort of rapid production of a bunch of species all doing different things, exploiting the environment in different ways. The classic example of an adaptive radiation would be the Galapagos finches, where one species got trapped on the island and eventually evolved into, what is today, 13.
Okay, so what about these finches? The most famous example is the ground finch, a bird that usually eats small, soft seeds, but during a drought on the islands was forced to eat harder, larger seeds. Within just a few generations, the bird evolved a larger but shorter beak better suited to cracking those large seeds. Another finch uses twigs to get at and eat insects, while another, the vampire finch, has evolved a sharp beak that allows it to peck at seabirds. It turns out these new species were not just evolving to suit their environment, it was also in competition with each other. In the Galapagos, Schluter found that when two finch species coexist on the same island, the differences in beak size and shape are actually more dramatic than when the same two species were found separately on different islands. This phenomenon signaled that competitive interaction between the birds was a mechanism that led to the formation of new species. His work continues to provide insight to this day, especially with a changing climate. We need to know how species can adapt to a warmer world. And now, you're Science Smart. If you have a science question on your mind, send me an email and I'll try to get it answered.
Johanna, thanks very much, and welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Makarenko. Now, the BC Home and Garden Show is coming up, and our next guests are involved in a variety of ways. Carissa, Kasper, and Cara Wilson-Lang, they're here today to show us how to grow our own cocktail. Hello and welcome.
Hello.
Thank you. I love this idea, and you brought such a variety of things in here. Why don't you just tell me a little bit about the concept and how you two got together?
So a cocktail garden is a blend of fruits, edible flowers, and herbs that you can then infuse in different cocktail variations. And Cara and I are dear friends, both passionate about local food and wine. And when we found out we were going to be at the home show together, we wanted to bring this concept to everyone there. That we had developed over time in my patio garden.
In your patio garden, take us to the patio. What was going on?
Sure, yeah, we were making cocktails, kind of like the ones we're gonna make here today. Carissa has a beautiful patio garden, and so, there was lavender growing. You can smell the lavender, smell the thyme, and it's really easy to make simple syrup. So we started making a few different types of simple syrup, mixing them up with different spirits. Trying different things out.
Just trying different things out. Okay, and how did this sort of come together in a business, as a business model?
So my business is designing gardens that feed you inside and out. And Cara started working in local food with her family orchard, and we came together around this passion of local food and drink.
Okay, let's talk family orchard, because I think there's some involvement here with what's inside those bottles right now.
Is.
How did that come about?
Yeah, so my family has 20 acres of apples in Kelowna, and we didn't know what to do with all of the apples. We couldn't eat them all, that's for sure. So we started experimenting with ways we could make spirits from apples. And at the time, no one in Canada was doing that. So we had our work cut out for ourselves, using different strains of yeast to use in the fermentation process. So it was about 2 years of R&D to come up with our Rebel vodka, which is made from 100% BC grown apples, distilled 25 times for what we think is the smoothest taste in vodka. And then from there, everyone was asking us to make a gin. So we finally agreed. And we used 10 botanicals in our gin, including local Okanagan lavender.
How much fun was that, putting all these together? I mean, you had to test it out as you're going along. We're back on the patio now. Try a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Exactly, back on the patio with Cara's own spirits. So taking it up a notch, figuring out some garnishes, figuring out some different concoctions that we were really excited to drink and share with others.
I love it. Come on. So what are we watching here?
Yeah,
what do we got?
So I've got our Eve's Original Gin, which has that local lavender in it. And then I have our lavender lime simple syrup, which the base is organic lime juice. And then we infuse it with the local Okanagan lavender.
And you brought the actual lavender, which is just It's so aromatic too. Beautiful. Okay,
Yeah.
where are you
Should we-
starting?
Should we make a cocktail? Okay,
Please.
so you start with ice.
It's a little
in your
early in the
shaker.
day, as we say. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, right?
We do have an alcohol-free gin also that we're working on, so I can make a cocktail and a mocktail.
That's interesting. Are you finding sort of an increased demand for the alcohol-free products as well?
Certainly, I think within my friend groups, within my family, there's definitely a demand for mocktail options, alcohol-free options. So exciting that Cara's family is working on that.
And I have 2-year-old twins, so for a time there, I couldn't drink alcohol.
Right.
So it's, there's lots of different people for different reasons that want an alcohol-free cocktail. So we'll start here with our 2 ounces of our Eve's Original Gin, and then we'll add.
Let me just smell it before
give
you.
it a smell.
Oh, it's already really aromatic before you're putting anything else,
Yeah, that's
anything
the
else in
10
there.
botanicals you can smell in there. And also even just the vodka with the apples, you can smell the apple from the vodka, which is kind of cool, doesn't it? And so then here we go with our lavender lime simple syrup.
The simple syrup, beautiful. Did you bring ice too?
I did bring ice. You
Beautiful.
need- ice is key.
Of course. That's it. I always marvel at bartenders. I think they've got good strong arms in general, all that shaking going on.
You want to shake it well, that definitely helps. So there is our beautiful kind of light pink lavender lime with the gin cocktail.
Isn't that gorgeous? Is there any garnish that goes with that, or is it just on its own?
Yeah, Carissa, do you want to maybe garnish this one there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I brought along some edible flowers, and what you want to think about with the edible flowers as garnish is either very small petaled flowers like the viola here. So I'm going to give that to you, and we're just going to float it right on top. Or you can use larger petaled flowers, just adding a couple of flowers rather than the whole flower to the top.
How
Just
much
like
fun
that.
is this? Like, I know this is a big part of the Home and Garden Show as well, about growing your own patio gardens, and how much can you do in a very small space?
And that's exactly what I've brought here. I design gardens from balconies to backyards to bars and restaurant rooftops. So no matter the space that you have, you can grow a lot. And that's what I aim to empower gardeners to do. So for here, we've got some Mediterranean herbs. We've got a lime tree. You can actually grow hardy citrus in our climate, as well as the edible flowers. So just in this, 2 square feet, we have a cocktail garden.
I see. You just need the cocktail and everything else to go along with it. Can we have a little toast here?
Yes, of
I wanted to
course.
save the best for last here. Enjoy the Home and Garden Show, and thank you so much, both of you, for coming in today, and a little bit of a treat in the middle of the day. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Do you find it's a little easier each time you make it disappear?
If you'd like to go out and see some live music, indie singer-songwriter Andy Schaaf plays at the Orpheum Theatre March 11th.
I'ma break every box they try to put me in. I got a lot of enemies who used to be my friends. Pull me up before and I feel like myself again.
And Canadian rapper Nav plays UBC's Thunderbird Arena March 12th.
Hey, I'm Grant Lawrence from CBC Music, and it's been a good couple of weeks when Desiree Dawson releases new music. Her new song is part of a recently released compilation album celebrating Black History Month in February. I'll get to Desiree's amazing new tune in a bit, but first, some background. Desiree Dawson is a Juno-nominated singer, songwriter, music producer, and yoga teacher, originally from White Rock, BC. Desiree first caught the ear of the CBC when her brilliant, uplifting debut single, Just Fine, powered Desiree to the podium of our annual Searchlight competition back in 2016.
There is a part of me that knows that I'll be just fine. There is a part of me that knows it's all in my mind. There is a part of me that knows that I'll be just fine. Just fine.
Oh, that song still stands up as one of the best ever to win Searchlight, our long-running hunt for Canada's best undiscovered talent, which Desiree won on the strength of that song 7 years ago. In 2022, Desiree Dawson broke through with a Juno nomination for her stunning record, Meet You at the Light.
'cause you were here, and that is clear to me. And every time I think of you, it's the sweetest memories. I am here 'cause you were here, always guiding me, the light that shines in me. Oh, meet you at the light. I meet you with the light shining bright, shining bright. Meet you with the light shining bright, shining bright.
That's Desiree Dawson with the title track for her release, Meet You at the Light. Earlier in February, Desiree Dawson released her latest single as part of that compilation I mentioned. And this tune sounds like a poolside summer sizzler, an upbeat dance pop song called Lonely. Check it out.
I work hard, I work fast, do my thing, make my cash, stay up late, go to sleep when the sun shines. And throughout all these days, thoughts come in and take up space. I don't always admit it, but the truth is, sometimes I get lonely and need you to hold me. I won't always admit it, but when I'm deep in, it's controlling. 'Cause your touch is salvation, the sweetest foundation. And I need a lot of space, but I need to see your face. Sometimes I get lonely.
That's Desiree Dawson with her brand new song, Lonely. And that song can be found on an album called The Art Of, a compilation of contemporary Canadian Black music from Western Canada in celebration of Black History Month in February. And Lonely by Desiree Dawson is the tune that you need to add to your pop playlist for this week. Thanks a lot to Mel for the hat. I'm Grant Lawrence from CBC Music. I'll check in with you again soon.
You know, we've been highlighting the voices of prominent Black musicians and performers, hearing about music they love and how it moves them. Well, gospel singer Marcus Mosley explores musical foundations of Black resistance and social justice. Just check this out.
I'm Marcus Mosley. I'm a singer, songwriter, former missionary, traveler, jack of many trades. If I were to say one thing, I'm just a person who's committed to sharing love and humanity and empathy, encouraging people to care about other people through my music. We call it Revelations because it's transgenerational. I'm representing sort of the older generation. I'm 70 years old. So I'm sort of representing the older generation and the foundations of the music from Africa, from the slave period, from the civil rights era. I want them to just hear the sounds, hear the different styles of music, hear the words, hear the spirit behind them as the different people sing them. They come out of various periods of time. Some of the music is contemporary, some of it goes way back and it's got that old sort of gritty blues sound to it. Some of it is very church, very anthemic. To hear that and feel that, and just to get a sense of this is how Black people from that period of time, these are some of the ways we responded to the world in which we lived, through music. Like you'll hear Mahalia Jackson singing How I Got Over.
How I got over, how did I make it over?
It's about no matter what comes into your life, God will help you get through it. And then at the end of your life, you'll look back over your life and think, my soul looks back and wonder how I got over. I've got songs like the Alabama Bus, which is talking about the experience of being told to go to the back of the bus and how people dealt with that.
Stop that Alabama bus, I don't wanna ride. Stop that Alabama bus, I don't wanna ride.
I was born in Texas during the time when Jim Crow laws were in full effect. One of the things that was strong for me there was my mother. My mother always had a song under her breath. She just kept this song going. And as a child, I observed that, and I learned that what she was doing was keeping herself spiritually centered And mostly it was about also keeping me safe when we were together. Also, I worked in the fields, cotton fields with my mom. And so as a child, I remember being out there and hearing them all joining in together and singing those old spirituals, you know. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, or soon I will be done with the trouble of the world, are all different kinds of gospel tunes or spirituals they actually sang in the field. Black history doesn't just start with slavery. Black history is rich and full. My people have had an impact on North American culture more than just being slaves. We are creators, innovators, scientists, doctors, all of those things.
We come to it, we must confess that we are the possible. We are the miraculous, the true wonder of this world.
Maya Angelou, oh my God, she exposed me to that world, which taught me that I can dream big for myself too. And what her goal was to inspire young Black children to see themselves as more than the world was telling them they were. To inspire us to dream and to imagine ourselves doing whatever it is that was in our hearts to do. And that's the message that I think, that's the job that I think I have and other musicians have, is to remind people of that truth, that within each of us is the potential for great compassion, for great generosity, for great beauty. And music is one of the ways through which we can express that.
Bhangra dancing, it could lead to major health benefits for children in the South Asian community. There's a new study out, and results, they're still preliminary, but the research suggests it could lead to major improvements in the heart health of South Asian children.
In a dance studio tucked away in Surrey, the music is blasting and the moves heart-pumping. This isn't just a regular dance class. It's also part of Project Bhangra, a UBC pilot study looking at how to improve the cardiovascular health of South Asian children. 156 kids aged 8 to 11 took Bhangra classes twice a week for 7 months to improve their cardio health, and the early results are promising.
We also saw improvements in vertical jump height, and that really measures muscle strength and power, as well as waist circumference, a reduction in waist circumference and body mass index.
South Asian children are at higher risk of heart disease compared to other children due to a combination of lifestyle and genetic factors, but exercise can be a powerful antidote to pre-existing risks.
Power actually is using from your legs, from your toes, from your calves, from your thighs, right?
UBC's early findings showed that after months of these classes, the kids can jump higher and run more laps in a timed beep test. But the instructors found there are even more benefits, like increased self-confidence and new friendships.
The parents always come up to us, hey, our kid cannot go outside, talk to anybody, sits in the room all the time. But after a couple of months, it changes the whole scenario. The kid is more outgoing, more talkative.
What's your favorite move? Should I show you? Yeah, show me. That confidence also caught on camera.
Before, I wasn't that strong and I didn't know how to do the moves, and now I know how to do all the moves. I've been coming for a long time, and then when I'm doing exercise and hard moves, then I can get stronger. I have more energy each day to like run and stuff because of Bhangra.
Project Bhangra is now hoping to continue the research and expand the pilot from 4 schools to 20.
It really makes me happy that we were able to come up with an exercise, again, that it's culturally based. Parents love it, kids love it.
A way to connect to culture and build healthy habits, all while having fun. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Surrey.
Coming up, how to tell when your pet is saying, enough is enough to the winter cold. Hi, welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Makarenko. Well, no doubt with this weird winter weather, you've been bundling up against the snow and freezing temperatures recently. But, you know, we aren't the only ones to feel the cold. Our furry friends feel it too. Here's some tips on how to protect your pet.
The first thing to look at would be pad or paw health. The digital pads can become really cracked and abraded and have little micro fissures in them, so little kind of splinters. That can be a sign that would create some major discomfort. Broken toenails would be really common in the winter. We see them all the time and they can be really uncomfortable. They're fairly obvious to most owners in that they can bleed a fair bit. There are various ice melt products that have chemicals in them that are irritating to the skin and can create some inflammation or abrasions. We can also see that the thaw-freeze cycle creates really uneven, rough ground. And so it's really common for us to see pad abrasions or lacerations, and those can be really uncomfortable and really painful. It's fairly common for us to see cold exposure in the form of frostbite. I would say the most common areas that we would see it would be in areas the furthest from the heart. So the ear tips, the tips of the tail, and then the toes. Generally, dogs will tell you that it's uncomfortable either in the moment by sort of paw lifting or after the walk by licking their paws constantly. And there are physical signs that they're too cold: sluggish behavior, lethargic, heat-seeking. They can have changes in the colors of their extremities. That would obviously tell you that they need to have some indoor time. There's not a lot of data behind this, and I think it's because dogs are just so variable in coat, in size, in cold tolerance. Generally, I would say at -10, you need to start making some accommodations, and those accommodations can be shortening your walks, adding on layers, moving indoors for some animals. Booties have been really well marketed as something that's really great for your pets. And in some occasions that's absolutely true, but sometimes it's probably more of a stressor than it is an actual protective mechanism. So again, it's knowing your pet and understanding their cues telling you that you've pushed them beyond their comfort level. Doing some proactive care, making sure that your dog's nails aren't excessively long, trimming up really excessively long hair on the feet so that they don't amass a bunch of little micro snowballs that can be really uncomfortable. There are some topical products that you can place on the paws, especially for ones that maybe have previously been injured or they're dry and cracked, and so a lanolin-based ointment, it's often called paw wax, can be helpful in sort of just creating that barrier. Wipe your dog's feet after a walk. It takes any of that ice melt that might be lingering away, and it dries the pads so that we don't have this really wet, moist fur that's collecting in between their little toes. The minute that the paws get wet, they do get a bit colder. Your dog is probably fairly good at navigating those things, and so I would say let the dog take the lead on that one.
Coming up, setting the wheels back in motion. Hi, and welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Makarenko. You know, 20 years ago, Real Wheels Theatre, it was founded to increase equality of access for artists with disabilities. After a few years of the pandemic, the theatre is back with renewed energy, and I had a chat with the managing director, Jason Broadfoot, on CBC's morning radio show, The Early Edition.
Our vision is to create a barrier-free performing arts space that is diverse and represents the world that we live in with all of its people.
And what about for you personally? What's your connection with disability arts?
Well, I had spent on and off 30 years as an actor, stand-up comedian, arts administrator, and playwright. But for the last couple of years, I identify as being disabled. I'm a stroke survivor who is neurodiverse, both dyslexic as well as ADHD. I live with chronic disease as well as invisible disabilities. So it's something that all of a sudden became much more aware to me in the last few years, how the arts are somewhat inaccessible to actual performers. They're accessible to audience, but many times the actual stage and performing space is inaccessible, or the way that we actually work. So when I had the opportunity to take on a leadership role at Real Wheels, I jumped at the opportunity.
I see. Well, what have you got planned?
Well, the next thing we have planned coming up is called Freewheeling, which is a free mini festival that we're doing in partnership with the Roundhouse Arts and Community Center. It will be from May 7th to 14th, and it will be a week of mini workshops that are going to be for people with disabilities, presented by artists with disabilities. And then the final night, we're going to have an invited scheduled performance to, again, display the art that is out there. And we're going to end with music and a social gathering so that we all are in the same space again, our community and our supporters, because it's been so long with the pandemic that we could actually exist in the same space.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I can see your facial expressions. Yeah. I can hear the excitement in your voice right now. Quite a contrast. Again, what was it like for some of your members through the pandemic?
Well, it changed the way we presented, for sure. We moved to online models and hybrid models. We had to reschedule some of our professional shows and fill in the space with podcasts. And even our training became Zoom in many cases, as opposed to face-to-face training. But we worked to make sure that our community was safe and that the work still happened and still went on. But, it's not just the pandemic that slows down the people of our community. Days like today are incredibly difficult for someone that is a user of a wheelchair. With the snow on the sidewalks and the cuts, it makes it very difficult for them to get around. So, for example, if I had been a wheelchair user, it would be very difficult for me to have made it to studio today. It was hard enough as it was with the invisible disabilities that I have. So it was a challenge, but again, we persevere. The show must go on. So.
Yeah, and when we talk about Real Wheels and support from the community, what are ways people can support what you do?
Well, people can absolutely participate in our community programs, our community shows, the Playwriting Circle. People that are pursuing, artists with a disability that are pursuing life in the arts can look at joining our academy for professional training. But honestly, just attending the shows, and people that want to get involved that maybe don't want to be on stage, there's always room for volunteers. And of course, we're never sad if people decide to donate to the society. That's a way that you can be involved without actually having to be on the stage.
Now, at the end of this program, we like to tip our hats to our talented photojournalists on staff here at CBC Vancouver. They bring us images in their artful ways to give depth and character to the stories that we cover. So here's a sampling from what they saw this past week. And that's all for Our Vancouver for this week. I hope you can join me weekday afternoons on CBC Radio 1 for On the Coast. For now, goodbye.